The statement said Mangione's murder of Brian Thompson, an innocent man and father of 2 young children, was a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America. Employees across the massive U.S. Health and Human Services Department began getting notices of dismissal today in an overhaul, ultimately expected to lay off about 10,000 people. The notices came just days after President Trump moved to strip workers of their collective bargaining rights at HHS and other agencies throughout the government. Meanwhile, a coalition of state attorneys general sued the Trump administration this morning over its decision to cut $11 billion in federal funds that go toward COVID-19 initiatives and various public health projects across the country. Attorneys general from 23 states filed the suit in federal court in Rhode Island, included in there, as you might expect, Minnesota's Attorney General Keith Ellison.
I don't want to fire anybody who's keeping track of the safety of food.
I'm in agreement.
I want the
But we
burger.
just had a huge food fraud, though.
No, this has nothing to do with food fraud. Different deal. Yeah.
If you're going to try to put food on your family, I want them checked out then. Okay.
A possible breakthrough in the fight against Alzheimer's disease. Researchers have developed a blood test that diagnoses Alzheimer's disease and measured its progression with 92% accuracy. That breakthrough offers a potential tool to accurately diagnose the disease while tailoring treatments to an individual's specific disease stage. Unlike existing blood tests that only aid in diagnosis, the new test can distinguish between early and late-stage Alzheimer's and differentiate it from other causes of cognitive impairment. The test identifies levels of MTBR tau 243. That's a protein that indicates toxic tau accumulation in the brain that correlates with Alzheimer's severity. Researchers found patients with non-Alzheimer's cognitive impairment showed normal levels of the protein, while patients with mild cognitive symptoms from Alzheimer's showed elevated tau protein levels, and those in the dementia phase showed levels up to 200 times higher.
What did we call this in 1850?
He's off his rocker.
I guess.
Yeah. Aging, probably.
Yeah.
Do anybody nervous about Alzheimer's?
Nope.
Well,
Oh, yeah. You better believe
Well,
it.
but in 1850, the life expectancy was about 36.
that's a very good point, Chris. Yeah, a lot of people were dead well
A
before.
lot
of people.
Maybe this is a result of an increased lifespan.
Yeah. Yep.
I wouldn't say I'm nervous, but I say I have some concerns.
I think you're very justified in having them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that a compliment?
No.
Is that, yeah. What,
It was called senile dementia or pre-senile dementia.
Called headed for the Twitch
So
farm.
they already diagnosed it way back when.
Evidently.
I just want regular dementia, not
Because
senile.
what did they call the guys that had the lead?
That was called lead poisoning.
No, they were calling like the Mad Hatter or something like that.
No, Mad Hatters. Jesus Christ. You're talking way too much today, and none of it makes sense.
No, it does.
None of it.
When they had the lead
Mad
poisoning,
Hanners was the result of using mercury in the manufacture of hats.
Thank you.
And they
I knew it
became-
was something like that. Justification.
in the last 5 minutes, your accuracy level is very, very low.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's the
Rescue-
Alzheimer's.
Rescue efforts are continuing in Myanmar 3 days after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit the country. As of right now, the death toll has risen to 2,056 with more than 3,000 injured. But getting information out of the area is difficult, and there are questions over the scale of the disaster still yet several days after the earthquake. UN says the quake has compounded an already dire crisis because the country is in the midst of a 4-year civil war. Despite this destruction, a report says Myanmar's military leaders are still carrying out airstrikes against pro-democracy rebel groups. Meanwhile, in neighboring Thailand, at least 20 people are known to have died, with rescue efforts continuing in Bangkok for 74 construction workers thought to be trapped under the rubble of a collapsed high-rise building. Meanwhile, rescue teams are working from China, India, Malaysia, Russia, and Thailand. A U.S. team, though, has yet to appear at the scene of the quake in the Southeast Asian nation, which occurred in the same day the State Department informed thousands of employees of the U.S. Agency for International Development, which administers civilian foreign aid, that nearly all of their roles were being eliminated. Critics have warned that President Trump's cuts to U.S. foreign aid, which had previously accounted for less than 1% of the annual federal budget, could create an opening for authoritarian governments such as China and Russia that are trying to increase their global influence. On last Thursday, when the earthquake happened, President Trump said that there would be help for Myanmar, but nothing has been sent yet.
May I pause us a second?
Certainly.
There were some issues with the YouTube feed. The issues were with YouTube and not us. And Kyle has set up a new feed. So if you're still seeing a frozen image, just back out, go to the main GL YouTube page, and click on the new feed, and you'll be fine.
Copy. Thank you.
I'll warn you, this story here is pretty disgusting, but it does fit into the category of kicker, to wrap up the news.
Sure.
A woman in Shanghai unknowingly drank wastewater for 5 years after a water purifier was installed incorrectly, with medical checks saying because of that she now suffers minor liver damage.
I would think so.
The woman, identified as Lu, recently discovered the error after using a water quality pen to test her supposedly purified water. To her dismay, the device indicated the water from her purifier had significantly poorer quality than regular tap water, according to the South China Morning Post. Lu's water showed a total dissolved solids level of 600, double the usual levels found in typical tap water. Upon inspecting the purifier, Lu realized the pipes had been installed incorrectly, causing purified water to flow into the sewer and wastewater to be redirected into her drinking supply.
Oh, my God.
Lu reported experiencing the minor liver damage. According to medical checks conducted last month, the purifier was originally installed by an employee of Xiaomi, a major Chinese electronics manufacturer, back in September 2020. The employee, however, has reportedly quit and could not be reached for comment, according to the South China Morning Post. Following Lu's discovery, a Xiaomi representative visited her home to confirm the issue. The company did agree to replace a filter component and promised further discussions to try and resolve the whole matter.
Two things.
Yes.
One, what a testimony to the strength of the liver.
Sure.
And two, you mean to tell me
You didn't
that she
notice
drank that water for 5
Thank
years?
you. How did you
and
not notice
didn't
right away?
Taste it?
I was hoping somebody would ask that question.
You know what she had? A water emergency.
She did. Boy, she did.
Yeah.
That was a water emergency.
Well, how clear could it have been?
Not very clear,
Not
Matt.
very.
It's a little sooty.
They
Or what's the
should've
line
used
from?
the Chinese welter to install that.
No, she needed Hofferman water in Connecticut.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Precision Garage Door is already your garage door guy. If you haven't made them your garage door guy, do yourself a favor and put this number into your telephone contacts, 612-263-6985. Precision Door serves western Wisconsin, the entire metro. Really great service. The record, I guess, is a guy called and 6 minutes later they were there. We don't know how they did that, but they're amazing. And if you need a new door, they have models for every budget. They'll send out a designer. That of course, is an absolutely free consultation. And a new door will not only improve the aesthetics of the old place, but improve security and insulation and everything else you want in a good garage. Precision Door MN are your people. These guys are great. And if you get a new door now, Precision Door is providing, free of cost, a new motor for that new door, $760 value. 612-263-6985 or book online at one word, precisiondoormn.com. podcast. We can take all the time we want.
Well, we don't know that.
Truth, justice, and the Souchere.
Let me tell you something right now, Joe Souchere. If you've noticed a different texture to your drinking water, like our last story just had, then maybe you should call my friends at Hofferman Water and Connecticut. And here's the deal. You've got to get on the schedule to have them come out and give you that water score. I don't know if everyone would get a lower score than the woman in John's last story, but you do that by dialing 612-895-2440 or book your appointment online at HoffermanWater.com and see the benefits of going beyond whole home water treatment systems for hard water, iron, and chlorine. It's having a third-party certified reverse osmosis system that's going to take reduced contaminants that are commonly found in both city water and well water as well. And you got to get rid of that stuff because having amazing water is going to make such a great difference. Trust me. I did it a number of years ago, and I'm so glad that I did. And I know that you will be too. But you got to get on that schedule right now. 612-895-2440 or HoffermanWater.com. Hofferman Water has been proudly serving the state of Minnesota for over 50 years. Please do me a favor and mention that you heard about them on the Garage Logic podcast.
We have a new proposal for teacher licensing. And again, you won't read this in the normal sources. This is American Experiment. Apparently, we got a new licensing proposal that requires a license for teachers to analyze social and human relationships with the natural world through indigenous, pre-colonial, decolonial, and post-colonial lenses. Teachers who hold the license would be authorized to provide instruction in the interdisciplinary study of race, ethnicity, and indigeneity to students in pre-K through grade 12. The separate license for ethnic studies is needed to address a 2023 Minnesota law that requires ethnic studies in schools. Minnesota high schools must offer an ethnic studies course starting in 2026-27, and elementary and middle schools must offer an ethnic study instruction by the 2027-28 school year. The state's 2021 K-12 social studies standards set to be implemented during the 2026-27 school year also include ethnic studies. As other required academic standards come up for review and revision, math, FIAD, science, language arts, health, and the arts, ethnic studies will be embedded throughout those standards as well. The board states its new proposed licensure will help ensure that ethnic studies teachers meet statewide academic standards. The bill before the legislature is House File 29. It would repeal the statewide liberated ethnic studies mandates and suspend the implementation of the 2021 actual social studies standards. So I think we're for that. In other words, House File 29 repeals all this BS. Well, here's the deal.
Check it out now.
Here's some examples of subject matter standards that an ethnic studies teacher would have to demonstrate knowledge and skills in to be licensed.
Okay, this will be telling.
You want the license.
Yeah.
Understand how indigeneity, why don't they just say indigenous? But we have to have a new word here. Understand how indigeneity, race, gender, and other markers of identity are constructed and how these structures are maintained through power and language. Understand how counter-narratives serve to deconstruct dominant narratives that replace the status quo, power, and oppression, including counter-narratives of resistance and activism within communities that have historically faced oppression. Understand how identity is constructed by systems of power and people in positions of privilege. Understand and apply critical frameworks to analyze how historical structures of power and domination impact intersectional, historical, and contemporary inequalities at individual and social studies and societal levels, including historical and ongoing social constructions of race and white supremacy. How power is defined and created and how it affects black and indigenous communities. The history of slavery, settler colonialism, genocide, neocolonialism, imperialism, and capitalism. Intersectional identities and the interlocking nature of power and oppression. The 4 I's of oppression: ideological, institutional, interpersonal, and internalized oppression. Understand how to hold schools accountable to colonial structures in educational settings. I'm going to stop. It's very evident what this is. Staff?
What? No, I was going to ask you what is this?
This
I
is
don't know.
teaching. This is teaching the mystery. This is the founding of this country is flawed. It's based purely on white supremacy and oppression, and you're here to understand that we agree with you that that's wrong. And
Who distributes these requirements?
this is the state of Minnesota's requirements.
Okay.
If you want to get this license,
Well, how would you? How then? Would you teach the black experience from 1600 up until today?
well, I suppose the way it's being taught.
Or the Native Americans since we first landed on the shores?
Well, then you could make a decision to place a greater emphasis on teaching the history of indigenous people, and you can place a greater emphasis on teaching the history of black people. I would suspect that could be done in a way that doesn't completely destroy the country.
And would you leave out anybody's history who is white? What about the Irish Americans, the Italian, the German, etc.?
That's not part of this. This is
So
people
this
of
is
color.
only if there's color in your skin.
This is called people of color.
When was this? Do we
okay.
know when this was amended? Because that can't be the 1950 criteria to
No,
become.
this is 2023.
20, yeah.
The new ethnic studies rules. And I think it's key to understand what they mean by the teacher wanting the license. You had best understand that you hold schools accountable for colonial structures in educational settings. So in other words, the whole reason we're here is all wrong.
Bad.
It was constructed incorrectly, and we have to undo that.
Does anybody in the education world understand what manifest destiny is and
No.
that it originated right after Adam and Eve got kicked out of the garden, if you believe that? I
No,
mean,
they do
since
not.
the beginning, since we went from 4 limbs on the ground to upright, manifest destiny is, and it's still going on around the world.
Right, but I'm answering your question. No, they do not understand it. If they do, they don't care about it.
All right.
It's a liberated version of ethnic studies rooted in narrow ideologies that emphasizes an us versus them binary. Oppression, decolonialization, settler colonialism, dispossession, resistance, and frames complicated history as a zero-sum power struggle. In other words, we're here to teach you that this country was set up to doom you from the beginning. Well, isn't that's
Even
what
though
it
right
is.
now you're free, you can do what you want.
But they're leaving so much. What about when France owned half of the country, or Spain, or, oh my God, Russians coming over?
Not enough to worry
just,
about.
They're just focusing on one tiny little bit.
This country was set up. This country was set up for one reason.
Yeah.
Screw you.
Okay, Earl.
This country was set up for one reason, and we're here to completely undo it.
But that's, I guess, what we're discussing is the difference between social studies and history, right?
Right. This is not history.
Right. This is social studies.
And remember, Walsh put a guy in there who wants to overthrow the country. The guy from McAllister. I have his name.
Can't social studies be taught along the way when you're teaching history? I mean, aren't you automatically teaching social studies as you teach history?
Sure.
If you're a good enough teacher?
What's the difference between social studies and history?
Don't you remember the name Brian Luzansky?
Yeah.
I
He
do.
was appointed by Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to oversee education curriculum. He's an advocate for the radical concept of critical race theory and has called for the overthrow of the U.S. This is the guy Walz placed in trust because that's who Walz is. Walz is absolutely a functionary of this. He's an education radical. And this is merely a reflection of what this is going to lead to. It's a giant making you less than.
But you can't assign 2025 values to what happened in 1776.
That's why they want to completely blow it up and reconstruct the country.
Well, you can't.
That's what they want.
You just can't change
That's what
history.
they want. That's what they want. The country, remember, the founders were white, they were male, they were flawed, they were full of patriarchy, and everything they did is merely an affectation. Laws, competitiveness, capitalism, achievement, discipline, following the rules, those are all affectations that were embedded into our cultural consciousness by white guys who wore wigs in a hotel room in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
They
but
were
then-
Joe, they were the victors. The victors always teach history.
But then all the
Or something like
descendants
that.
made a great company, developed the machine, developed electricity, and then everybody else around the world's going, "That's a great idea. I want to borrow that."
None of that makes any difference. That was all done through a patriarchal power structure. And it makes no difference that there's not a country in the world that has done more to atone for its sins than this country. Doesn't make any difference.
What about all those slaves in Minnesota?
There weren't any, man.
That's right. We didn't have.
No, the argument now, Matthew, is there were, and might be true, the companies that benefited from slavery in the North, and that's why we're paying here in Minnesota.
That's why we got to put our little chit in.
Excuse me?
That's why we got to pay. Put our little chit in for our bad dealings.
Well, apparently there's a bill to counter this. I don't know if it'll pass.
No, of course not.
House File 29 would repeal this. Demand for this licensing, and you'd have to, and it would suspend the implementation of the 2021 social studies standards. According to the American Experiment, you can contact your legislators and
yeah, right.
encourage them to support House File 29. This was written just last week by the American Experiment. So the failed academy is really would be experiencing a great deal of newfound power in their effort to deconstruct the country if this passes, because the kids all will be taught that you're horrible and our founding was horrible and there's nothing good that came of it. And I wouldn't personally do that to a child, no matter what color the kid is. I would treat every kid the same. This is the opposite of what they preach. We're all equal, and this is telling people we've never been equal, never will be. You got no shot at it. The people that founded this country were miserable bleeps, and you're doomed because of it, and we're all doomed, and we should start over with a new constitution.
I don't know if I agree with anything you just said there.
I don't care if you did or not.
Well, it was founded on white principle.
Right, and they find that so insidious that they would undo it.
Well, it's too late to undo it.
Well, that's what they want to do.
When are we
Walz
going
appointed a guy who has said he wants to overthrow the country.
When are we going to start teaching real history? That's what I want to know. There's been men and women walking around on this continent since the beginning of time.
I can't.
I mean, if we want to go back and start over, we need to really start over.
I'm too old to get away with it. I'd love to get away with sitting in a high school history class. And what do they learn, I wonder?
That's a great question.
I wonder what it's like. We had this. I told my favorite guy was our Civil War teacher. We knew the Civil War, baby. Brother Bus.
Brother Bus.
He was a Civil War savant.
I apologize. I was distracted. I thought you were kidding, but a loyal listener from the town council just sent the actual Melvin Carter press conference declaring.
It's an emergency.
I thought you were.
You thought I was making that up?
I thought you were making the press conference part up.
No, official term, baby.
There were 17 people standing behind him in front of the trash
And
truck.
probably 3 in front, behind the cameras.
I'm living in a trash
Your
emergency.
city's funny.
Yeah, it's real funny. Back to what we were talking about that you so rudely interrupted.
No, I
know.
said I was distracted
Well, don't be distracted.
by subject matter on the show.
Yeah, don't do that.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, stop listening to the show and get back on Twitter, will you?
so. There you have it. You can be comforted that you think your child should be put through that, or maybe you don't like it. Maybe you do. I have no horse in the race.
I'm glad mines are done.
I just have no horse in the race.
Well, don't worry, because it was announced yesterday that Pillow Guy is going to challenge Walls.
Like I say, the Republicans have a hard time coming up with
I threw my hat in the ring yesterday.
candidates.
Have no fear.
The pillow.
Pillow Guy's here.
He's never going to go away, is he?
Only because the pillow guy's going to run for office.
Only
Right.
because
That's the
we're
only
totally bleeped.
Is he really?
He announced it last night.
To who?
To Blue Sky, I have shouted out into the ether.
Only because they come to us all the way from Marloth Park in Mpumalanga, South Africa, from the Traveling Lymans. It was on this day in history.
April Fools.
By the way,
I haven't even pranked you yet.
I should read you this. Do you think this is true, or was it April Fool's?
How long is it?
Don't worry about it.
We've got some April Fooling to do.
The Bigfoot movement, sign of immediate Yellowstone supervolcano explosion, unusual activity at Yellowstone National Park has created conviction that the long-predicted violent eruption of the supervolcano that underlies the park will occur at any moment. Groups of Bigfoot are streaming out of the park, resulting in an unprecedented number of sightings as the creatures appear unconcerned about human encounters. That was an April Fool's bit. Now, Tiger announced just 3 weeks after having Achilles heel surgery that he's playing in the Masters. That got everybody's attention today. Then he had to put out April Fool.
Oh, I would have bought that.
Yeah.
Where is St. Paul City Hall? Is that down there on Kellogg? Right down there?
That'd be on 4th Street, Kenny. And at Kellogg,
Yeah.
it fronts Kellogg and backs up on 4th Street.
Kellogg was
So
fun.
if your trash containers at your home, if they're full, they're not being picked up,
I would have dropped them off.
would you recommend dropping them off? Or what
No,
would
I would not. I would not recommend that.
Okay.
There's probably a
Because there's
law
been some
against
talk around the internet that maybe that's what should be done with
I
it.
don't think that's. I think that's sophomoric and not an answer to the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You could drop him off at the mayor's house because you know he's going to be there.
I don't know where he lives, and I don't want to know where he lives, and I do not think any garbage should be dropped off at his house.
Okay.
Or were you talking about Joe?
No. He's got his Tuesday cleanup, pickup. You're over there on Maine?
Where were we?
Ending
You
the
were
show.
saying goodbye. and
Closing
doing
out the show.
Yeah.
This day in history.
On this day
Joe, today is April 1st.
in 1880, an act of Congress placed Fort Ripley Military Reservation in the public domain, making the land available for settler colonists. There you go. That should not have happened.
No, that wasn't theirs to give.
The fort, located on the Mississippi River below the mouth of the Crow Wing River, had been established in 1849 and was abandoned by the Army in 1878. On this day,
4-1.
In 1923, Twin Cities Savings and Loan Association was chartered. The $7 million institution assisted thousands of area families in becoming homeowners. On this day,
On April 1st?
in 1924, 600 women attended a women's safe drivers automobile school at the YWCA, sponsored by the St. Paul Pioneer Press.
Give me a year on that again.
Some of them are still there because they couldn't back
They're
out.
still in the lot. What year was that?
1924.
Oh, my Lord.
On this day,
April 1st.
in 1984, future Governor Jesse, the Body Ventura, and Mr. Saito took on Baron von Raschke and the Crusher in front of 18,000 fans at Chicago Stadium in an American Wrestling Association sanctioned match. Ventura and Saito won by disqualification.
Wow.
That was a pretty big event.
You know, Saito had a lot of salt.
And
He liked to
today,
throw salt in the eyes of his opponent.
where did it go?
You know.
Today we have sports disappointment.
Did you
history.
cover that wrestling match?
No, I never covered
They didn't
it.
send you on assignment?
I never covered
I hadn't been
it.
hanging out with Mr. Ass yet.
Now, here's today in Minnesota sports disappointment history.
Yes, sir.
I think you just read one there.
On this day,
On April 1st.
Clem in 1986, Clem Haskins was hired. On this day,
April 1st.
April 1st.
Wait, why is that a disappointment? Clem had a good run.
Well, he was.
National champion. National champion.
Well, not really.
NITs, national champion.
On this day,
On April 1st.
in 1989, the Gophers lost to Harvard in overtime in the national championship game.
Oh.
I believe that was hockey.
Yes, it was. I'm still upset about that.
But it doesn't say the sports disappointments. They
It
just
was
assume
hockey.
you know the sport.
It
Was
was
that
hockey.
one? So who hit the pipe on a late third or overtime?
I have no idea. On this day
April 1st.
in 2002, contraction. Oh. Under threat of contraction, the
I
Twins
was so
opened the
mad.
season with a win over Kansas City.
Yep. Jock Jones led off the game in the season with a home run. I
Now,
remember that.
here's another one, but April 1st, on this day,
April 1st.
2017. I don't know why this is a disappointment. Loons won their first. Loons got their first win. Why is that a disappointment?
It shouldn't be.
That's a joy.
Is that the last one? Because I got to go hit the pipe.
Goodbye. That's it, GLers. Thank you.
Do us a favor. Hey, if you haven't done so yet, upgrade your GL Town Council membership on an annual basis, and you could become the GLer of the week. Get your name shout out on the Friday episode of the podcast by the mayor himself, and you could win that wonderful box of Masters Maples products. But you got to go to GarageLogic.com and upgrade that Town Council membership today. And you can follow us along on all of our social media channels, which includes Facebook, Instagram, and X. And subscribe to the Garage Logic YouTube channel, because on that YouTube channel, you can watch the show each and every single day. You can also see full segments, video shorts, behind the scenes footage in some cases, but it's all there for you. And sign up for that Daily Logician. It's an email, and it comes right to your inbox each and every single day. And it includes the most recent episode of the podcast, so you can find it online, all at GarageLogic.com.